All right, well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. We're really excited with the topic for today's Igniting the Inclusive Workforce session on post-secondary options. It's all about education today. And I'm so excited to have our speakers and special guests and our moderator here who will lead you through today's session. But before we get started, I first wanted to welcome you. This is our fourth seminar in the Igniting the Inclusive Workforce series, and BDI and the area workforce partners are very excited to have this series and to have it continue. And it's really all made possible by our sponsors. And so we're really excited by the support that we've gotten so far. We've received grant funding from the Atlanta Foundation, and our sponsors are Disability Inn of Greater Atlanta, Georgia Tech's Excel program, and Georgia Tech's Institute for Leadership and Social Impact. But today we have a wonderful setup. We did a practice a couple of days ago and we are ready to go. And to get things started, I want to introduce our moderator for today's session. So Terry has been involved in this project from even before its beginning. She was did a lot of help in just the incubation of it and the ideation and helping us to get it all started. And so we're so grateful that she will also be moderating today's session. And Terry Blum is from Georgia Tech's Institute for Leadership and Social Impact. And she will go ahead and introduce our speakers for today. Take it away, Terry.
Thank you, Todd. It's my pleasure to welcome and to introduce Cate Weir to our virtual conversation. Cate has spent her career working toward inclusion and full participation of individuals with intellectual disabilities. She spent the last 15 years working to assure that students with intellectual disability have the opportunity to attend college in states throughout the United States. She has served as the project director for the Think College National Coordinating Center since its inception in 2010. And they just received their second renewal. And she coordinates all project activities, including technical assistance, training, dissemination, and data collection. It is also my pleasure to introduce Maggie Guillaume. Maggie was born in Douglasville, Georgia, and she spent most of her life growing up in Roswell, Georgia. She is currently a senior, a fourth-year student in Excel, which is Georgia Tech's inclusive post-secondary education program that leads to 2 certificates of completion. Maggie has lots of talents and interests, and I'm sure that we'll get a chance to listen to just a few of them during our virtual conversation this afternoon. So hello, Cate, and hello, Maggie.
Hi, Terry. Hi, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, let's start with a question, and we will try to have a conversation and look at the chat room. And those of you in the audience who have questions, please do enter them. Anyway, Cate, can you start with telling us a little bit about what Think College is?
Sure. Think College is a project actually a group of projects at the Institute for Community Inclusion at University of Massachusetts, Boston. And we do a number of different projects, all related to trying to increase opportunities for students with intellectual disabilities to go to college. We work on the transition pieces of that. We work with colleges to create new programs or to enhance the programs that they have. We also conduct research on the outcomes of the practices in college programs, as well as their outcomes for students. We do a great deal of technical assistance. So we talk with college programs, but we also do a lot of talking with families. And I think a lot of people on the call today might be family members or students who are interested in college. So I want you to know that Think College loves to talk to families. So if you have questions after this event and want to talk with us more about the possibilities of college, or have specific questions that pertain to yourself or your son or daughter, that's another thing that we do. So we're delighted to be here, and we appreciate Bobby Dodd Institute letting us share what we do with their audience.
I looked at all the Think College resources when I was designing the Excel program at Georgia Tech, and I can tell you that we would not have a program if it wasn't for Think College. So thank you very much. I also used Think College resources when I was looking for a program for my own daughter. And one of the questions that often comes up from people who don't know very much about inclusive post-secondary education is, why college?
Well, that's a really good question. And I think it's multi-layered, but and I bet Maggie has a good answer for this question too. But when I think about it, and the reason that I became so passionate about this and have felt very fortunate that I've been able to work towards increasing college opportunities for students, is that I think college education is a really important thing for everybody. I believe in the power of higher education to transform lives, to prepare people for careers. And I felt, as did many other people in the movement, that it was not okay that students with more significant learning challenges like intellectual disability were basically the only students that were completely excluded from continuing their education after high school. With the movement to include students with disabilities throughout their K-12 education, these students were with their peers going to high school, and then all of a sudden their peers, their friends, their brothers and sisters were going off to college, and those opportunities were not available to them. So fundamentally, I think it's a concept of fairness and equity to have these opportunities available to every student who wants to go to college. Also, I think that college can be transformative for anybody that attends, but it's also really gratifying to see that the students who are attending college programs for students with intellectual disability have terrific outcomes, not only in employment, being employed at higher rates than their peers with intellectual disabilities who do not have the opportunity to go to college, but also just in things like life satisfaction, their social lives, their ability and opportunities to live independently in their own apartments with roommates, rather than maybe living at home. So we find that the students who are participating in these programs do have very terrific outcomes. And that's what you would expect, because it's kind of what happens for all of us when we have the opportunity to go to college. It results in positive impacts on our lives.
Maggie, can I ask you why you chose to go to college?
When I was in high school, I also looked on Think College just to look for colleges to go to, because I'm the youngest in my family. So I have like a brother and sister, and they're all older than me, and they had college experience. And I wanted to have the college experience just like they did. And so I looked into colleges, and I found Excel, and I really like Excel, and I want to be independent. So I won't have to live with my parents I wanted to have more independence, not being stuck at home for 4 years, not knowing what to do with my life.
Well, that's great. I'm going to move back to Cate and to find out, what are the characteristics of college programs for students with intellectual disability?
That's a really good question. And I think it's a question that a lot of people have when they first start hearing about it, that, it's possible for students with more significant disabilities to go on to college. And I think some of the ways in which these programs are similar to one another and they're important characteristics to understand. They are typically a non-degree program. Students are earning a credential at the end of their program of study. As you mentioned, like for example, at Excel, there are 2 different credentials that students can earn, but those are not typically associate degrees or bachelor's degrees, but other types of credentials, certificates. And there's usually an alternative admissions process. So when you think about, for example, again, I'll just keep using Excel as an example, since that's where Maggie goes to school. There's an admissions process to get into Georgia Tech, but Georgia Tech Excel offers an admissions process that's unique to its program. So there may be criteria to get into Georgia Tech that are not criteria to get into the Georgia Tech Excel program. Very often one of those criteria are that these college programs often, or almost always, do not require a regular high school diploma. So for students with disabilities who may graduate with an IEP diploma or some other special diploma, those are typically accepted at college programs for students with intellectual disability. There's also a really strong, they differ in a number of different ways, and that can be interesting. When you go on thinkcollege.net and you look through the programs, you'll see that while they have some similarities, they also differ from one another, which is exciting because it offers different choices for students. But another way that they have a commonality is that they really focus on student outcomes, particularly employment. So you'll see a strong focus on career development, helping students explore their career interests, and supporting students to take classes and to have employment internship experiences that are geared towards the careers that they want to pursue when they graduate. So I think those are, hopefully that describes some of the key characteristics of the programs.
Great. What are the career outcomes of the programs that you've found through your data collections?
Yeah, we, as the National Coordinating Center, we collect data from several federally funded model demonstration programs. So that's usually in our last round of data collection, it was close to 60 college programs that we collected extensive amounts of data from around their practices as well as their student outcomes. And those data have shown pretty reliably that students 1 year out of the college programs are employed at 65 to 70% of those graduates are employed in competitive employment, meaning employment that is above minimum wage for at least 20 hours a week. And we love, those numbers continue to go up each year. So it started around 62%. Last year it was closer to 70%. And we'd like to see those numbers get even higher, but it becomes a really stark comparison when you compare those data to the fact that another data set that looks at adults with intellectual disabilities living in the community, their rates of employment have hovered right around 17 to 18% for very many years in a row. So we might have much higher employment rates. And as I mentioned, we also find in our follow-up data with students that their life satisfaction tends to be high because they've made a lot of social connections at college. They have friends that they met at college, and you know they're going to weddings and going to clubs and participating with their friends and living independently. So not only employment outcomes, but also other positive life outcomes that we find with graduates.
Great, thank you. Maggie, we want to know about your experience these last years. You're in your 4th year, you're getting ready to graduate in May, and I'm sure that you have some goals for what you're going to do after graduation. Can you share them with us?
My goals for graduation is to hopefully become a teacher assistant. That is like the job I want. And so I've been having internships and like I took classes that are relating to the job I want.
Did Excel help you prepare for those goals of being a teacher assistant?
Yes, because I had 2 internships off campus and they were both like in a classroom setting, which is like perfect for me.
Okay. let's move on to some other things about your experience at Georgia Tech. You had to take some classes, right?
Yes.
What are some of those classes that you took?
For Excel classes, we all have to take a careers class, which is where we would learn about different like job options, and like we will learn LinkedIn. And also we took a financial literacy so it could help us to learn how to budget. And we have an option to take an inclusive class, which is for like we would be in a class with full of people. Like I take like a psychology class, sociology, human development, and psychology.
Did you get help with those classes?
Yes, we each would get a tutor for our classes.
How'd you go about getting a tutor?
I would talk to my academic advisor, and she'll like email the teacher, and he'll send out an email to every student. And so whoever reaches out to the professor, she'll get them the contact information from that tutor student.
You also had experiences with coaches and mentors throughout your career at Excel. What role did they play in your education and in meeting your personal goals?
My coach would prepare me for like if I need help with budgeting, she'll teach me how to budget. And if I had like 1 year I had a fitness mentor, and she would help me like to try, like we would work out once a week, then she'll try to push me to do 2 times a week. And we would also have a cooking mentor, so we would cook with them, and we would meet with them 1 by 1 or like 2 times a week or whenever.
How do the mentors and coaches know what it is that you want to work on?
I'll just tell them when I'm like slowly struggling in. Like if I need help with something, they'll just try to help me as best they can for me to reach that goal.
Great. Were your classes challenging?
Some of them were, but I'm so glad that I had a tutor was there to help me.
Great. Cate, how can we learn more about these programs? A parent or a student who's just embarking on the search and thinking about whether this is a route that they want to go?
I think both of you have mentioned our website, www.thinkcollege.net. And we provide on our website lots of resources. A couple of places that I think are particularly interest to families is we have a section of our website that's just called For Families. And what we mean by what we have on that section are some of the frequently asked questions that families have, a couple of videos and some other resources to read that really help you to get like sort of some of the foundational information. And we answer some of those key questions like how do you prepare for college? How do you find the right fit in college for a college program? What are some ways in which we can help pay for college? So we hope that that's a good introductory to families to start learning some of the basics about these programs in general. And then to specifically find out about the options that are available, we maintain a database of college programs for students with intellectual disability. It currently has 303 college programs listed. So these are all over the country, and you're able to search that database by the characteristics that you might be interested in. If you really want to go to college in Georgia, you can just look at all the college programs in Georgia. Or if you want to go away and you want a college that offers campus housing, you can look at all the college programs that offer campus housing and so on. So that's a good way to sort of see what's available and what's out there. And then we offer some basic information about each program, a general description, and then some key factors about the kinds of classes that students take, the kinds of work experiences that students may have, and those kinds of things. So, and then there's a couple of tools you can use on our website that allow you to save your favorites, download those to a spreadsheet so that you can compare the programs.
Okay, I have a question from the the chat that I'd like to pose to you. But first, I'd like to let the audience know that Excel is not the only program in Georgia. Like Cate said, there's more than 300 programs, and there's about 9 in Georgia for people to choose from. And I'm really proud of that because I think we have some of the most numerous ones for people to choose from. Anyway, the question here is for you, Cate, is how do you respond to employment-focused government agencies, not-for-profit agencies, and parents who question why they should pay for an inclusive post-secondary education program that results in the same job that the student might already get without going to college? So that assumes that they have the same job, and it's too much.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I get the question. And first of all, I will say, yes, Georgia's done a terrific job of creating programs. So I'll concur with that, Terry. And what I like about the Georgia programs is they're all a little bit different. So it really depends on what you're looking for. There is a nice variety that you can look for right in your own state. And there's also a large number of programs in the Southeast as well. But back to the question, I do think that there's an assumption that the student would in fact get the same job without going to college. I think in some ways that addresses that students are earning a credential that, for example, they're not getting a bachelor's degree in accounting. So it doesn't have that very specific tie to a degree that a certain job might require. So that's true. However, when it comes to individuals with intellectual disability and more challenging learning challenges, the college experience offers such an opportunity to learn and practice the soft skills and the self-determination skills and self-advocacy skills that are so important to keep a job. So many studies of individuals with disabilities who maintain their employment, we find that the skills of the job often can be taught by an employer, but what is often, what keeps people employed is their ability to be adaptable at the workplace, to get along with their colleagues, to get along with the people that they're working with, to understand how to take instruction, how to learn, how to do the job maybe from a class. All of those skills are skills that they learn in college. So, while the individual decision to decide to go to college to prepare for a career versus doing an apprenticeship or just going out and getting a job after high school is an individual one, I really think that there are strong arguments for why college is a terrific place for young adults to learn to be independent, to learn something about what they want to do for work. And I don't think with the we can't really have a crystal ball to say, what, Maggie would absolutely still have gotten a job as a teacher assistant if she had not had the opportunity to take classes in as she said, human development and psychology, as well as have supported internships in classrooms. So all of those things are part of her college experience that I think make her much more employable than if she had not had that opportunity.
Maggie, maybe you could tell us a little bit about the experiences that you've had that are going to make you a better teaching assistant. And I'm thinking both about your internships and about your service activities. Why don't we start with your internships and what you learned at them?
What I learned about my internships that were in the classrooms was one year I was at the Fraser Center, which is preschool. And so what I did there, I would be helping out, like when it was nap time, I would give them their mats and tell them where to go. And then I would also tell them to wash their hands right before they have food and before they go on the playground. And this semester I'm interning at the cottage school, which is a school that I went to for high school. It's a school with students with learning disabilities in Roswell, Georgia. And that's where I help them, I'm working one-on-one with a student. If they need help, I answer their questions, and I do the copy machine for the administration.
Great. And tell us a little bit about your activities at Georgia Tech, including your service activities.
I'm involved into a service sorority called Omega Phi Alpha. It's like a non-judgmental service sorority where anyone could join. We even have a guy that's in the sorority also. He's our Omega man. And so what we do service projects. Like in last spring, I did a service project at the Reese Center where we helped students with learning disabilities ride their horses. And then we would also do a game called Free Rice. It's like if you raise 1,500 points, the rice will go donate them to hunger. And then we would do like service projects on campus. Like we would make positive notes for like mental health, and we would also make positive rocks.
Tell me about your relationships with the other people who are in the sorority. Do you have a big, and are you a big, and how did all that come about?
I have a big, and her name's Rachel. She's also a senior in Excel. And the last spring, I decided that I wanted to have a little, like I wanted to be a big just like Rachel. So I decided to do wanting to be a bit. So I picked a little that isn't in Excel. She's a regular junior in regular Georgia Tech student.
Great. And how do you feel about how does it make you feel when you do your service work with the other students?
It makes me feel happy. I love being with them. They're like my sisters, and we all have a family. I'm a part of the Delta family.
That's awesome. How about your dorm living? I think you lived in the dormitory for several years, didn't you?
I lived in the dorm for 3 years, and I did laundry, I had a meal plan, and living with a roommate was good, even though sometimes we had conflicts, but we resolved the conflicts.
How'd you go about resolving the conflicts?
Well, we meet with one person, and her name's Alana. They go every month. And so sometimes if I had a problem with a roommate or a friend, I would tell her about the problem, and then she'll help me get through it. And then I'll just move on from it. From like, if I'm anxious, I would just call her or go for a run.
Wow. Well, thanks. Now, Cate, there's a question here. I think you already may have answered it a bit, but if there's anything you wanted to add, it's what are the qualities of inclusive programs?
Well, I think the question might be asking about the students, the qualities of the students. Charles, I think that's the question. So I'm going to answer that one. I think the qualities of students that I think are most important, and I hear from a lot of college programs, their number one criteria is that the student is very interested in going to college, that it isn't something that is being forced on them, or it's something their parents want them to do, but they really want to go, and they understand the value of it for themselves. And I think Maggie's is probably illustrating some fantastic qualities of a college student, in that she's likes to learn. College classes are part of these programs. So for a student who's not interested in sitting in a classroom or doesn't really want to do that kind of learning anymore, that's probably not going to be a great fit. But for a student who is interested in classroom learning, as well as in working at internships, who is interested in participating on the campus community, because I think that's when you get the most out of it. Again, Maggie really illustrates this with her involvement with the service sorority, but wanting to join clubs or be part of student government or participate in athletics, all of the things that the campus offers to students. I think the students who are really interested in participating and taking advantage of all of that, they're the students that really enjoy it and stick with it. The programs that we're talking about, just to get a little technical for a minute, all serve students who have a diagnosed intellectual disability. So for the college programs that we have on our website, it's not really a quality, but it's kind of a a criteria that the student is diagnosed with an intellectual disability. Those are the students that these programs are designed to support.
Thanks for answering that question. Maggie, what's your opinion about, or can you tell us about how your program Excel is preparing you to transition from college into the real world?
It's going good. Like for me, since I'm home during the year for the pandemic of COVID, I learned a lot throughout when I was at Excel, like even being on campus. Like I loved all the internships I had. Enjoyed all of the classes I took.
Wow. Do you think you're going to come back for classes in person in the spring?
Maybe. It just depends if I'm still doing my internship at college.
Okay, so your internship is closer to home, so that makes it easier for you to join remotely, I gather, right?
Yes, but hopefully I could just come on campus during the weekends. Like if I have service projects to do for my service sorority, hopefully I could come there during the weekends and stay with like a friend during the weekend.
Great. Cate, I'm going to move on to, college is a personal choice for students and their families, including inclusive post-secondary education programs. So how can families and students prepare for inclusive post-secondary education?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And it's really part of our mission to get the word out to families and students that college is an option for them, that there are programs that are particularly designed to support students with intellectual disability, because very often these students don't hear about college as an option or an opportunity from their special educators or from their transition teachers or their guidance counselors. And families may say, well, boy, I didn't even know this was a possibility. And so sometimes families can feel a little bit like they're getting a late start because they may not hear about these until students are seniors in high school. So it can be great, first of all, to just find out about the options, share it when you know about the options, share them with your friends and your special educators so that they can continue to spread the word that this is a possibility. And then I think preparing for college, we have some great resources. Actually, there's a couple of resources that I share all the time that are created by a colleague in Georgia who's a transition special educator. And there's ways to think about, for example, to get thinking about special ed in particular, there are ways to structure the IEP of a student who's still in high school with college as a goal. Because if you think about some of the skills that Maggie's mentioned and that you think about just with a student living on campus, or even a commuter student, you need to have certain skills, maybe some understanding how to use transportation services, either campus transportation or public transportation. Have you ever spent a night alone? Some people really recommend, is there a possibility to go to a sleepaway camp or other opportunities where you've had some time away, or even that you get to spend a few hours by yourself at home without your mom and dad around. Just practicing those kinds of levels of independence can help students not feel quite so anxious or nervous when they go to college, where they really won't probably have somebody with them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They will be on their own. I think another very specific skill that's really helpful, and I think probably most young people today are learning it, but just how to use a cell phone, whether they're going to speak into it to text message, but how to send a text message and so that even if you're, an adult is not around or a supporter is not around, you know how to get in touch with somebody if you need help. So thinking about those general skills and a few of the independent living skills that all college students ought to know about, and maybe I hear very few of them may actually know how to cook for themselves or how to do their own laundry, but working on some of those skills. And then also academically, because college, again, there are academics involved. So being included in high school classes and learning to take advantage of tutoring services and how to get tutoring services, and how to get the most out of your academic classes by participating in academic classes in high school are some of the things that come to mind in terms of preparing for college.
How can we prepare high schools to transition students into college better, in addition to just making them aware?
Well, I really would like to see more, what's the right word I'm looking for? Just very specific and thoughtful planning about the skills that a college student needs, and working on those in the IEP rather than generic skills, but ones that are specific to thinking about being functional and being able to work well on a college campus. And fundamentally, inclusion in academic classes in high school. If students spend their entire high school experience or a bulk of their high school experience in a resource room without participating in academics, or their only level of inclusion at the high school is in sort of art classes or physical education classes, that's going to put the student at a disadvantage when they're going to a Georgia Tech or a Kennesaw and sitting in a psychology classroom. They're not going to have that skills of even how to be in the class, and then other related skills like maybe taking notes or learning how to use a tape recorder if note taking isn't going to be something that they're going to be good at. So learning how to use academic accommodations while they're in high school that they can then feel comfortable with when they get to college. And another piece of advice that I like to give people around preparation is very often in high school, students in special education may be eligible for and may have a paraprofessional that supports them throughout their school day. And that can be really helpful for students. But I love to think about the use of the paraprofessional, not to do things for the student, but to teach the student how to do things for themselves. For example, if tape recording a lecture helps you to be able to listen to it again after class, don't have the paraprofessional bring the tape recorder, push the record button. This is probably do people even use tape recorders anymore? I'm not sure this is a good example, but it's the one that came to my mind. The paraprofessional making the tape recording, but teaching the student how to use the technology, and just generally doing assessments on technology supports, because so many students with all kinds of disabilities at the college level are supporting themselves with technology, not with people, because a paraprofessional is not a typical support at the college level, but utilizing laptops, iPads, phones, recording devices, smart pens, those are all very typical supports that students are using on campuses. So introducing, assessing students for potential technology that can support them, and then teaching them how to use it while they're still in high school can be a really powerful way to prepare students to use those technology supports effectively in college.
We use a lot of that. We're lucky to have Tools for Life as part of Georgia.
Oh, I know. That's such a great program.
It's the state of the art in terms of
it is
equipment and modifications. They're awesome. I guess I'd like to ask a question that just came up that is saying that there's an equity issue that is coming up there's a proliferation of programs, yet there remains equity gaps in terms of who can afford the programs. So what's being done at the federal and state levels to try to even this playing field a bit?
You know, that's a really important question, and it's something that you really see. I mean, a college education is an expense, and it can be even more daunting for a student with an intellectual disability because, as I mentioned previously, college may not have been seen to be a possibility for students with intellectual disabilities. So even if families might have been able to save up for college, they maybe didn't even think about doing it for their student with an intellectual disability. So they may start a little bit behind the 8 ball in that regard. There's a number of initiatives that I think are trying to address the gap. I think probably none of them fill the gap completely or make this problem go away completely. But I think things like, for example, the ABLE Act, which is allowing students, individuals with disabilities to save for a variety of things, but including saving for college. Whereas in the past, individuals with disabilities were sometimes precluded from saving because it would impact their benefits. The ABLE Act helps with that problem. So saving becomes more of an option. States are looking at ways in which the services that are available to adults with disabilities in the community that might be funded by Medicaid or other kinds of adult service providers, how can those be adapted and modified or made available to support students on a college campus? For example, if you're eligible for some supports for independent living that you could use on an apartment, why can't you utilize those same supports in a dorm on a college campus? So there's been some pilots in some states around that. The use of vocational rehabilitation to help people prepare for employment is used in some states, and that in part by going to a college program. Of course, several years ago, when they created the possibility of programs being approved to offer federal student aid, that was fundamentally what they wanted to do, is help to address the equity gap and the affordability gap. And what this means is that if a college program goes through an application process, it becomes approved as a comprehensive transition program, which I think all or almost all of the programs in Georgia, for example, are, and there's over 100 of these in the country. That means that students who are financially eligible are able to access a Pell Grant or a Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, even if they are not matriculated towards a degree or if they don't have a regular high school diploma. So it tries to remove a couple of barriers of access to federal student aid for students. So that's one piece of the puzzle as well. And some states have looked at making sure that access to any college scholarship programs that are available for students in their state are available to students with intellectual disabilities as well. For example, by addressing with the legislature a language that might open up those scholarship funds to students who are non-degree seeking. And then that makes it available to the students in the CTP programs.
So in addition to the Pell Grants in Georgia, Georgia allows the 529 plans for CTP programs, which is not the case all over the country, but it is the case in Georgia that certificate programs qualify.
That's great.
I'd like to move on to Maggie, because we're getting to the end of our time together. And Maggie, I'd like to know whether you would recommend a friend of yours think about coming to a program like Excel.
I would totally recommend, like, anyone who has like a learning disability or intellectual disability, I recommend them to come to Excel.
Have you already recommended that people come?
Last year, I went to a college fair with one of my teachers, Ashley McKean, to talk about Excel, and now there's a freshman in Excel, and she came from my high school.
That's great. Well, Todd, do you want to take it from here? Do you have any questions that we didn't ask that you want to ask, or do you want to wrap it up?
Well, I can't thank you enough, Terry, Cate, and Maggie. Wonderful content, great questions as you experienced. We got some questions as well from the audience. So there's just a lot of value in sharing this information. And so we appreciate your time and your expertise. And thank you again for everything that you shared today. As we look forward, and I wanted to share with everybody what's next coming up. We have our Inclusive series continuing. The next event is going to be on December 1st. And we have guest speakers from MARTA and GDOT that are going to be joining us. And that should be a really informative session as well, because transportation seems to be one of those topics that is consistent and that people are looking for information on. It's a very important one. And so we hope that everybody who attended today is able to make it on Wednesday, December 1st as well. And in the meantime, everyone will get an invitation to this session on December 1st, but also if there are any questions from the session that weren't answered, or you would like to learn more information about the series or anything about BDI, feel free to connect with us through any of our social media channels or taking a look at our website. But in the meantime, once again, thank you to our speakers for today. Thank you to our sponsor.
Can I add something before you thank everyone?
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that we leave everybody with the website link for Think College. It's thinkcollege.net, correct, Cate?
Right.
And truly, I'm available to speak to people who might be interested and have more questions. I'm a parent and I co-founded the program. I don't deal with the day-to-day things about it, but I've educated myself pretty much. So please do reach out to me at Georgia Tech.
And just while we're wrapping up too, there was one question in the Q&A, which I'm answering by typing. So Lydia, I just wanted to let you know I'm answering your question right now.
Great. Thank you again, Terry, Cate, and Maggie. Have a wonderful afternoon, everybody, and best wishes to you all. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.